Welcome to O.P.O.P, the podcast, Operation Protect Our Peace.
I'm Stacey.
I'm Sarah.
Tune into O.P.O.P as we expose all the hard stuff to get to the sweet stuff.
You'll get the truth, plot twists, and the pivots you need to protect your peace.
Life hits hard,
But with God, O.P.O.P hits harder.
Hey, Joy Stealers.
We're coming for you. Hi, welcome to O.P.O.P, the podcast, Operation Protect Our Peace. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Stacey.
And today we are going to walk through Stacey's journey on a lot of injuries. Stacey, you've had a lot of injuries and health stuff over the years.
Yes.
And I'm really excited for you to share with the listeners and me how you got through it from a faith-based perspective, and also just practical tips on how to find healing through the fractures. Because apparently there's been some fractures in this story. Our title today is Faith and Fractures, Finding Strength in Healing. So Stacey, take it away and give us what you got. What injuries have you been through?
All right. Well, I will start with, I was ninth grade before I actually got a serious injury. So it's pretty good considering pretty active family. I was the type of person, I still am, up for anything. So the more injuries you get, the more you maybe stop and go, should I try this? But back then I never did. So the first one was a slight concussion, ninth grade, 14 years old. And a friend locked arms with me. It was our free period. We got to go outside that day. And she locked arms backwards with me and said, do a flip. And I said, I don't know how to do that. Put me back down. And she just went for it and leaned forward and flung me straight into the ground. So backwards and upside down, head first, straight to concrete with someone flinging you hard. So I got a slight concussion on that one, but that was my first time where it startled me. I saw stars. I understood what people meant when they said, I saw stars, because everything went black. I could hear the ringing, and took a minute for the vision to come back, but that one was considered slight. The next injury was actually another concussion. And that one was a major concussion. I was a senior in high school, 17 years old. And that one landed me in the hospital. That one was, I fell off of the best ski rope swing ever in our backyard. And my dad and mom had our yard hooked up with the swings and the fun stuff. And that one, my dad took a ski rope, and we had these giant trees in our backyard, and he wound it up, flung it up and over. And it was so cool. I mean, it was wrapped around the end. And so you would take off running, and you think how high this tree is. It's so tall. So you could get some major air and go flying. And then you'd come back through the middle, and it was just the right height that you take off running through the middle and then woo and swing. Well, I had a friend come over after school who had never been over before, and just for kicks, she wanted to see the whole place, the whole yard, and I took her back there, and she's like, no way, you have all these cool, fun swings. I said, yeah, I'll show you, and let me do the old check it and make sure, because my dad always tells us, make sure you check it before you go flying on that thing. So I'm hanging on it, jumping, bouncing, and we're solid. I go flying, running, and I am at my peak. The rope snapped.
Oh my gosh.
It was sort of at the tallest peak and on my way back down that it snapped. So I landed on the roots right next to the tree trunk on my back. And she said, because I don't recall this part, that I landed on my back, but then my legs went over my head like a taco. That's how she described it. So it knocked me out.
You poor thing.
And all I remember is she's 2 inches from my face going, Stacey, are you okay? Are you okay? And I just jumped right up after that. So she's thinking it scared her to death. And I'm going, oh my gosh, the rope broke. I just kept saying that. And as we're walking back in, I start sobbing. And I wasn't in pain, but I could not control the sobbing. That was weird. And I went inside, and my mom's going, tell me what hurts. Tell me what hurts. And I'm going, nothing hurts. And I just could not stop crying, and she starts looking up all the symptoms of a concussion. That's
Mm,
one of them. It's uncontrollable emotion.
mhm.
And then shortly thereafter, I started vomiting, which is another key factor to a major head injury. And so that one landed me in the hospital, and they did all the tests, confirmed it was severe. And so, but at that time, the first and second one, you asked, or we were talking about what are the injuries and how did they impact my daily life and well being. So I never even considered how it would impact me going forward. It's the first time I ever had anything. So I just figured, well, I guess I'll just get through it and I'll bounce back. So those two injuries I never really considered long term impact. Then the next injury was I was off to college and I was in year two. So at this point, I'm 19, playing college volleyball. Our coach was having us do 3-a-days that week. We had 3 2-hour practices that whole week, which is a little excessive, but we were doing it. And they did conditioning at the end of the day. So not only you're 6 hours in, and they chose to do conditioning at the end. So that was a bad setup in the first place, but you do what you're told. So the thing I was doing was you have to do 12 approaches to swing toward the net, 12 blocks and drop back as fast as you can, 12 push ups, 12 burpees, 12 crunches, and then 11 of everything, and then 10 of everything. So by the time you get to one, you've done a lot of repetition. And it was for speed. It was do it as fast as you possibly can, which is also not the brightest move because you're going to lose form. And it was at the end of the day. So I know my form was sucking on the push ups at the end. And that's when I felt a sharp pain in my back. And it felt like I described it as fire. It felt like someone burned me in my back. And I just
Mm.
went, ow. And those other two concussions were my only real injuries that I had ever had. So nothing like this. And I just told one of my close friends, we got a water break, and I said, ow, I think I hurt my back. And she's going, well, tell the coach. And I'm going, no, just don't say anything right now. Maybe it'll pass. And, you don't think that you have a major injury like that. Well, I ended up herniating my disc L4, L5, and it was a bad one. And I tried everything prior to surgery that I knew: acupuncture, physical therapy, traction, and I even saw a chiropractor, but everything just got worse. The pain got worse. I had sciatic pain,
Mm.
and it went from my back where I did it all the way down to my big toe. It shot down my legs, and the one leg was worse than the other, my right. So I couldn't sleep. They tried putting me on Celebrex. That really didn't do anything. And I lost in that amount of time, from the time of injury to surgery was 3 months. In that time, it was excruciating. I never got relief from pain. So that was my first time ever experiencing that, where there's no relief, not, oh, it felt better for a while and now it's back. It's just never gone. So I would just cry a lot at night, especially when I just make it through the day, and then at night I just couldn't take it anymore and I couldn't get comfortable. So I got an MRI. The neurologist said, I cannot believe you're the patient. So typically, older people get herniations. More men than women get herniations. More overweight people get herniations. And people who are not in fitness shape or whatever. So I had all the odds against me that this should have not happened. However, in this experience, he goes, have you taken some falls in your life? I'm going, yes, I have, actually, quite a few. Why? And this is not even counting the two concussions were two things that I clearly hit my back. But I also grew up tubing like crazy, and I mean, we were tough. So when you have a crazy Uncle John like I did, you got to be tough. And so who knows what actually caused it, but he taught me that you could have taken a fall. It could have been bulging for 10 years. And then that set it off. So just be a little careful, people, on your backs. But At the time, I was in college for exercise science. My degree is exercise science. And that's actually this injury is how I chose to become a personal trainer. So I learned so much from recovering from that injury. So I end up having surgery. The recovery, the first 4 to 6 weeks, you're not to carry a certain amount of weight. But I was in college, I had a backpack. So I would stand in the back of the classroom because you weren't allowed to sit for more than 30 minutes before moving. I had a backpack and I would make sure I didn't have too many books for that air time. And I would carry the backpack and then swap hands
Mhm,
and I just didn't wear it on my back.
mhm,
So I managed. And that recovery was not that bad. But what I will take a moment and say, if you are facing any injuries, listeners, right now, or you have specifically a back injury, there's a lot of people who give really bad comments and advice. So here I am, 19 years old, and I was getting comments like this: "Oh, you poor thing. You're going to have back trouble the rest of your life." Oh, and then when I was having to face whether I get surgery or not, they're saying, "You don't want back surgery. Oh, don't do it. That's so risky. Don't do it." But that's from people who are not in pain 24/7 and not having a neurologist say, "Hey, if you don't have this," because at the time of surgery, I could walk, but I had nerve damage, so I was dragging my foot. I couldn't lift my toes. I couldn't go up on my toes like a calf raise. And had there not been miraculous doctors who are talented and gifted, I would have lived the rest of my life like that. I would have permanent nerve damage, and it would be what's called drop foot, where you do just have to drag your foot. And so for me, surgery was a miracle.
mhm.
I woke up and for the first time in 3 months, I had 0 pain. Now, I clearly had an incision and there's all that, but all the pain I had been in, gone, and it never has returned. It went away. So I am so grateful for that. And I would just say, don't listen to the discouragers, because your body can bounce back from so many things,
Mhm,
first of all. And we are so uniquely made that it is devastating initially when you get an injury, but then it's amazing when you go through recovery that you figure out, wow, our bodies are incredible how they can heal.
mhm,
So that was my really first time of dealing with something major like that. And also, I feel that God helped me in this situation to learn before I hit 20 years old how to help gain clients for the rest of my career. I've been in this business now for 25 years as a Pilates instructor and personal trainer. And most importantly, it taught me how I could help people at a really young age, because there's people hiring me saying, "What do you know about back injuries?" Going, "Well, actually, I had back surgery and here's how I recovered. Here's what I went to." And I just kept learning.
mhm,
I'm still on the journey of learning how to do it. And that's why I've been able to help so many people through their recovery on many things now, because it applies to a knee, a hip, a back, a neck. You just learn. And what's cool about that too for me is that I didn't just give people pep talks to say, "You can get through this, you can recover." I lived it. And I decided, rather than have a perspective of this is to my detriment, I am going to decide I can get through this and I can take a step back for a minute while I get through this, but then I can move forward again in my life. So finding Pilates was a huge save for me because I learned the body even better and how to keep the core strong for life and regain strength despite the negative Nellies in life. It did, however, affect my life. To your question of how to impact me, it does, and it will for the rest of my life. Now, I had a choice to complain about that or change the narrative to, this is my lifelong motivation to stay strong and healthy. If I stop, the facts are I'll lose strength, I'll lose stability, I will have pain. But the opposite of that is also true. So it was a blessing in disguise in my career. And now I can say all this time later at 44, and this happened at 19, that I am stronger out of pain and still going strong, doing anything that I want to do with wisdom. There are exercises to avoid when you have an injury. But I have to tell a quick story about this though, because I had the neurologist who did my surgery. He knew I was a personal training student and exercise science major. So he said, "Would you want to come watch a surgery?" And I said, "Really? I mean, I'm not a nursing student or a medical student. Are you sure I'm allowed to do that?" He said, "I can invite whoever I want. And I think it would help you so much to be able to come and see that and see what fixed you." I said, "Yes, I would love to do that." So I go and I have so many questions about this, how this goes. And I go into surgery. They have to gown up and scrub up and do all the things. And I learned so many things about having surgery that I wish I didn't know. First of all, he was jamming to some music,
Oh my goodness, how funny.
and this person was
Fully
completely
open.
naked, and I'm going, "That was me. You guys were just walking around, and I'm just laying there,
Jamming to music
butt
while
up
you're
in the air."
naked.
And they're going, "What did you think?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I've never had surgery. The gown opens in the back. Why did you have to take it off?" And they're going, "Yeah, that's not sanitary." And I'm going, "Well, I didn't know." So I'm picturing you took it off and then you plopped me back on my stomach
Oh my
and
goodness.
I'm just out like a light. So fast forward, I feel so bad for this lady right now. But I'm so interested. How do you fix this? And then flip them back over carefully because you've just fixed their back. You did that to me too. So I'm so interested. I was going so strong until they started cauterizing, getting to the spine, and there was 5 inches of flesh to
Mhm.
get to this person's spine. I didn't think about that. And the smell. So kudos to all of you in the medical field. Thank you for what you do
Seriously.
day in and day out. But I passed out. They had to wheel me out of the surgical room. I couldn't hear, I couldn't see.
And then you
I didn't
herniated your
fall
other
or hurt
disc.
anyone. They got me down and put me in a wheelchair and wheeled me out.
Oh my goodness.
But it was one of the most embarrassing moments that I
Same.
had because thought it was so tough. And so I just want to say, hey, I learned that is not my gift. I learned that the hard way. But
Post-surgery is
thank
your
you to
gift.
those of you who are. And I just got to say again that surgery was a miracle. So if you're facing an injury that leads you down that road, sometimes it is your blessing. I know it's scary, but that can be a takeaway from someone who's lived it, that if you do have to have surgery, sometimes it is for your benefit. So God used this to guide me to what I was supposed to be doing. And that's another huge takeaway for me that I learned from this major injury. And also that I learned a lot about myself because when you get hurt really bad, you get to see how you will react. You get to see how you'll handle it, and you learn how much the body can really come back from. And you can use this in every area, not just from an injury. That's why we chose to talk about this and how it's connected to emotions and circumstantial and how you can grow spiritually and in your faith. So, next injury was age 22. I just finished college, and I took a sledding accident in Ohio. I did a full send off of a ramp that I couldn't see because of the sun, and we were on this mini plastic snowmobile sled, so it's up off the ground, and I had a 12-year-old with me. I was so pumped because I was gonna take her sledding for the first time ever. She's in the front, she wanted to drive-ish because this thing didn't really steer that well, and we hit that thing full send, and I'm holding her as we launch
Oh my
going,
god.
"Oh, no," and our weight shifted back,
Oh,
and her weight and mine came down on the corner of the plastic side of the sled, and I felt crack, and we both went rolling in the snow and landed face down, and I mean, I lost my breath. She looked at me, and she was fine, a little ruffled, but she looked at me and she goes, "Are you okay?" And it scared her. I guess I turned ghost white because I was really hurt. I didn't realize how hurt I was, and I guess that adrenaline rush hits, and I had to walk back up the sledding hill, pull the sled, and then to get back to where our car was, it was
So you were
Probably,
in the wilderness, like, you were in the
what?
forest?
We were we were sledding. It wasn't in the forest, no, because Ohio, there's not a lot. It was just the prime sledding hill
Oh,
that we had.
but you had no
But
one was around, you
we
had
had
to
to park in a
actually
parking lot, and then you truck it over there, and then you hike up the hill, and then you go down. So I had to do all of that to get back to the car, and every step I took was falling in about a foot of
oh
snow.
my goodness. Oh.
But again, you just bear and grin it, and then on top of that, I was driving a stick shift, so I had to push the pedal really hard and then shift. So fast forward, come to find out, I get home, but that night I was trying to cook and I was making some stuff. I burnt steamed broccoli. So pay attention. This is a fact, fun fact. All I did was steam some water, put some broccoli, just gonna steam it, burnt it to a crisp because I was just not mentally with it. I was in so much pain. And so if people are doing that kind of thing, you know that they're hurt. So the next morning, I got home. I started to be able to move less and less and less, but I had my parents just help me to bed. It was in the basement. So that next morning, I could barely get out of bed, but no one's down there. So I just decided to try to get upstairs. And every step I could feel my bones crunching. And I ended up fracturing my sacrum, which is the triangular bone. So you have your tailbone, and then there's this firm, it's all one piece. And it holds your whole hip bones and pelvic girdle and all that. It's all connected in there. So I fractured that in two places. And I didn't think I was that hurt until, again, I passed out. My mom caught me and I was in excruciating pain. So that's another signal. But I went to a chiropractor because I didn't think it was broken. I thought, oh my goodness, I have never bruised my tailbone this bad before. And he used this tool that if you whack a bone and it's broken, you want to die from the pain. If it's not broken, it doesn't hurt at all. And he had me lay on my stomach, which I could barely get to that point. And my sister took me because we didn't know it was this bad. So here she is, and I'm already just like, I can hardly breathe. The pain is so bad. And he goes, well, if it's broken, you'll feel this. He whacked at the bottom of his shoe to have it go boing, and he put it on my sacrum. I couldn't move, so there's nothing I could do about it except bawl my eyes out.
Oh.
And I look at my sister. She was my saving grace because I said, don't let him do that again.
Oh.
And he goes, oh, you've broken it. You've broken it. And you better hope that your tailbone isn't pushed in towards your intestines, because then we will have to manually go in there and jerk it back into place. So, hello, certain people have bedside manners, some people don't. So,
You would have
I
to
am
for your
freaking
funeral?
out. Yes. Thank God it wasn't. So, I get x-rays and everything. And it wasn't my tailbone. It was my sacrum fractured in two places. But yeah, laugh it up. I was not laughing. And oh man, if anyone's ever had that, I am sorry. So I was traumatized by that experience and in so much pain. And by the way, this was 6 months prior to getting married. So if you've heard my story and the timing and all that, that's where I was. I was about to get married. So I was also like, I can't walk. I can't do anything. I won't be able to have sex, like
Right.
nothing.
Oh, that's
So I was able to be okay by then. But uh, while there is a lesson in the fact that this one was harder than back surgery by far, because when you fracture that, there's no cast they can put you in. You have to literally be still. So I would only be able to get up to go to the bathroom, and that was a whole ordeal because every step moves you. So you're trying to stay still in hopes that it will heal correctly, but it's just
yeah.
a long shot whether it's going to heal correctly. So there's a lesson in being still, resting our bodies, but at the same time, the rest of your body is atrophying, which means you're losing muscle, you're shrinking basically, and kind of turning into mush a little bit. So I was eating the same amount of food, and even though it wasn't all bad, I'm sure I was eating bad stuff too to drown my sorrows, but it changed my body, and I noticed that trying to come back from it. And so when that was going on, a lesson I learned was that I can relate to clients who have been through really hard things that set them back. Because the first time I went to the gym after this injury, and I could still barely walk. I walked at 1 mile an hour, which was stretching it, for 10 minutes is all I could do. And it said, you burn 25 calories. Now, you all know if you've ever tried to burn some calories, 25 is like you can eat a piece of popcorn and
Maybe.
you just earn that back. Okay. So, but whereas before I would laugh at 25 calories, that's nothing. It was a real life takeaway because life is going to throw cracks at us. Life is going to throw fractures at us, figuratively and literally. But when it does, it's all in how we decide to look at them. And I could have beat myself up in disgust in the fact that I couldn't move and remembering that, 2 days before that, I could do, or, a moment before that, I could do anything. And I was strong and I was fit. And before you know it, poof, gone. Couldn't even walk. But I decided to be intentional instead. And I used my journaling and my gratitude book to change my thinking. So I remembered to write, I am grateful that I can walk. Because the truth is, I could have had an injury that stole my ability to move or walk forever. So that was a huge success. I would say another takeaway is that we cannot measure ourselves to the same standard from when we were at when our personal best. We need to be more gentle on ourselves so that we can make the adjustments and we can use where we were as a marker where we would like to get back to, but not as a way to tear ourselves down. And I would say a takeaway is learning to adjust when life hits. And it's a recipe for protecting our peace and our joy, tying it into O.P.O.P, because when you decide that setbacks can be for your benefit and helping you get stronger, you learn, okay, I could still have peace and I could still have joy through this. So I would recommend that if you're here now with a major injury or something tough in your life, it doesn't have to be an injury. Stop thinking about what you can't do, and let's put our minds on what we can do with the injury or without it immediately. And I'm not saying that we don't need to grieve where we are or where we have been, and that sometimes you're going to feel frustrated and lots of pain. But if we start realizing how much strength we really have, and you may realize, like I realized, that I wouldn't have known how capable and how strong I am unless I faced these injuries. So, for many years, I did not face any physical injuries. I had the blows to my heart and emotions that you'll hear in my story because that was a lot of the relational troubles. I had a nose fracture, but it didn't go all the way. It just was a crack, headbutt in dance practice in the early 30s. And then 2023, age 42, I gifted myself laser hair removal, folks. I thought this would be lovely to not have to deal with all that, Just thought it would be lovely for the bikini. And it was the biggest mistake, worst gift I ever purchased. I thought this is going to be easy peasy. Well, instead, I was given second-degree burns all over my whole vaginal and anal region because I figured if I was going to do it, I might as well just go Brazilian, which means the whole kit and caboodle, people. And instead, I ended up in the hospital in the burn unit with second-degree burns everywhere. And if you know anything about burns, second-degree burns are the most painful. And when you're talking about that area, that tissue, it is different. It swells more. It's highly impacted, as you could imagine. And that was my first experience with having so much pain that I said I would literally rather die than deal with this. I had never felt that. And I figured, well, I have Jesus. If I just call it good now, then and I wasn't thinking about taking my life. It's just I would have been fine if it ended right there because I knew I had my ducks in a row that I will be in heaven if I die. But that's how bad I felt. So then add on top of that infections, multiple rounds of antibiotics, gut issues from that, no immune system. I got sick. I got parasites. This all stemmed from this horrible second-degree burns. Plus, I thought I would never be able to have sex again. And I was self-conscious about the scars, discoloration, the way I had to be careful or else the skin would tear. I'm still addressing some of these issues actually
Yeah.
to this day because that was recent, but a lot of it has healed. And so, an encouragement to anyone who's dealing with a injury that you feel like you're never going to recover from, it does get better. In the moment, you think you're going to die, and then you don't. So, just some encouragement there. But then, lastly, that I'm going to end on this. 1 year after that, age 43, I got another severe concussion. I got launched off a big maple. So any of you boaters out there
I thought that
or
was a
or
horse.
non-boaters, you see all these Instagram or social media reels with the tubers and they're on that seated thing with 3 people across and people just get launched.
Oh.
That that happened to me. I was like that. And so I got a major concussion and that one was the one that affected me the most actually. I had constant headaches, neck pain, and real emotional unrest. I felt irritable, fatigued. I couldn't wear hats because it squeezed my head too much. Light killed my eyes. I couldn't take the sunlight or light in general in a room. I felt foggy. I couldn't remember very well. My sleep was off. I couldn't work out the same. So every time, as light of weights that I was trying to do to just keep it moving a little bit, the entire next day I would have the worst headache. It would last the whole time. So I also was very weary. And at this time, I was 7 months into our marriage, um, my current marriage, happy marriage. But so after 6 months of dealing with those things, I got introduced by Sarah to hyperbaric oxygen treatments.
Mhm.
So, shout out to Revival Hyperbarics here in Utah. This changed my life. It was a miracle help for me.
Yeah.
And I encourage all of you to go research it on your own and learn about it. That's for another time to go into details about for both of us. But that was one of those actual things that I did to help myself, and it was life changing. So, thank God for that. So, all of this is some of the major injuries I took are really fresh in the last couple years, but doing this exercise to talk about this episode, it really helped me realize that all these things are some are still impacting my daily life, but I have learned so much and tune in for the next episode because we're going to dive into what I did to heal, how my faith plays a huge role in my healing, and what helped me the absolute most.
All right, fantastic. Well, this will wrap up your first section, and then we're gonna dive on in for the next one. So, hey, Joy Stealers.
We're coming for you.